All right, welcome back to another One of None podcast. I'm one of your hosts, Dr. Jonah Casella.
And I am one of your other hosts, Dr. Andrew Ganang.
Welcome back, everybody. Hope you guys enjoyed the last episode. Just put it up on YouTube today, actually, because I was slacking, so it'll be up there on YouTube if you want to watch us talk about it. But yeah, let's get started today. So this is kind of not an impromptu, I guess a late podcast. Andrew was dealing with a sickness on Wednesday, and we thought we were going to have a guest potentially, but it was all kind of last minute, so we just decided to postpone it until now. We both are ready to roll. So today, and we're going to title this Earn It. And there's going to be some things that we've discussed in the past and some new stuff, but these are just some thoughts that I've written down as I've been training for this Ironman. Not to beat this to death or anything, but I've been doing the training for the Ironman for almost 5 months now, or four months now, or something like that. So it's my longest block of training so far, and it's been the most challenging for sure. Obviously, I have no background in road biking, cycling, or swimming. So it's been a lot of learning curve and having to be very patient. That's kind of what we're going to talk about, or the point that I'm going to get across is you have to earn it, and that comes with being patient. And so Andrew and I are the type of people that like challenges. We like to challenge ourselves physically and mentally, even religiously, as we talked about last week. And I think that the type of challenges that we like to do are the ones that don't come with instant gratification. They come with the days, weeks, and months of preparation to reach the goal or to accomplish the feat that we're going for. And that's kind of the people that we are. We love the challenges that take months of preparation. And like I said, there's no real instant gratification a lot of times. We coined our phrase. A lot of people say this. We didn't coin it, but brick by brick, day by day, little wins every day, and the steps to get better and to ultimately reach your goal. And so, it's the Ironman training has really tested me in a lot of ways, physically, but I think more so mentally, because I've just been impatient and almost expected that the progress would come without earning it. And, I figured that I could get better at swimming in a couple weeks, start to see the progress build in a month's time, like really make a lot of headway with the swimming and the biking. And that was just not the case whatsoever. Not even close. It wasn't until recently, I want to say a few weeks ago now, where I really started to notice a substantial difference in how I feel on the bike, how I feel in the water, my comfort level. It's just been like little teeny tiny breakthroughs, really imperceivable ones, until I got to this point where it's like the final tipping point where I'm like, oh, okay, I can do a 45-mile bike ride and still like feel comfortable running afterwards, or I can swim for 1,000 meters without having to stop. But it took 3+ months to get to that stage that I'm at now. And well before that, I got so frustrated because I just felt like I should have been where I'm at now 2 months ago. And then now that I have to step back and look at this bigger picture and realize that that's just not how it works. That's not how this Ironman prep works. That's not how going to school for a long period of time and studying for the test. That's not how it works, that you can just study for a day and then ace everything. Like, these are things that take so much time, but feel so much better in the end when you accomplish your goal. And so it's all about earning it. And you were going to say something, Drew?
Yeah, I think that's the name of the game. Like I've said this on previous podcasts of ours, and we live in a world of instant gratification. So, I can imagine why it's 10 times harder for us now than maybe it was before to like be impatient with achieving something or getting something that we want when I can order something at the tip of my finger. Like I did that 10 seconds or 10 minutes ago with you, Joe, and I ordered something online and it's like, all right, it'll be here tomorrow. And we have the same expectation of doing that with goals of ours. And I can remember back to college when we'd spend an hour trying to figure something out for one of our classes and we'd get frustrated. We were like, oh my gosh, this is so annoying. Why can I not get this? But that's a kind of a insignificant example, but it really does represent the larger issue that we are, as a whole, relatively impatient people because we expect things to come so quickly. And the people that get the best at whatever they're trying to do are the ones that are willing to fail way more. So if you're willing to fail, be made fun of in some circumstances, scoffed about, and this, that, and the third, you're probably more likely to be able to achieve that because you're able to at least withstand those barriers to the success and eventually reach that more than the average person can. And that's happened a ton, even with the prep for the half marathon training. The first 2 weeks were like you're doing low and slow miles to build a strong aerobic base. And you feel like you're just spinning the wheels because you just want to run faster. And you think that running faster is going to make you faster and that's going to push your pace. But it's really, you're actually being kind of dumb and not sticking to a strong training plan if you do try and navigate a different route. So I definitely agree with you, Jonah. And, I don't know from the Ironman perspective, I know from the cycling, but like not combining all three, it's tough. It is really tough to do all three at once. And then for you, it was probably picking up cycling and swimming. Those two things were new to you for the most part. So you're adding two new things into training when you're only used to running, and then now you're expecting to be good at both of those things. It's good to be multifaceted and have your hands in a bunch of different baskets, but and be a jack of all trades, if you will. But at the same time, it's going to take a little bit longer, and that's a tough pill for us to swallow for people who maybe can pick up on things quicker. Jonah, I can, from my perspective, you've always been able to pick up on things really quickly, maybe a little bit quicker than I was in school, for example. You know, I think that concepts maybe you were able to grasp a little bit quicker, and then you would teach me, and that's how you would learn really well and through teaching me. But for some of these things, it's just stuff we have to accept that we suck at, and that's going to be the pill to swallow to get you over that hump and realize, like, all right, now I can start to get good at this after 3 months or 4 months. And then that's when it really becomes great. And you're like, oh, this is awesome. That all the work I've been putting in is actually paying off that I didn't think would pay off.
Yeah, and I think that where that all starts is with expectations. The From the beginning, like setting your expectations to be realistic, and I don't mean by undershooting or selling yourself short of like a lofty goal, but I mean the expectation of where am I going to be at in training at specific times, and how am I going to feel like where am I going to be at in terms of my progress, and that just the expectation and knowing up front that it's going to take a few months to really feel comfortable with running. It took a couple months. I did a 3 month workup for the marathon. It took like a month and a half, I would say, to feel pretty comfortable. Like it didn't take that long because it's running, right? Like something that I feel like is natural for everybody. There's not a whole lot of technique involved in running. And so my expectation was, I think, off because of that and a little unrealistic about where I thought I would be right away. And so if I would have set that expectation that, hey, like you don't know how to, you think you know how to you know how to ride a bike, but you don't know how to cycle, and you definitely don't know what it feels like after hours on the bike. And that's going to take time to get to the point where you feel comfortable riding and sitting on your bike for 3 hours, let alone pushing it for 3 hours. And then swimming, you know how to swim, but you don't know how to swim. You don't know how to race. You don't know the proper form and technique and how to be efficient and not build lactic acid and breathe when you're swimming. If I had the expectation, or I set the expectation in my mind, like, hey, it's going to take a couple months for you to even get remotely comfortable doing laps in the pool. Just know that going into it. I feel like if I would have been more realistic in that, then I wouldn't have been so impatient up front with it and get discouraged. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
it's so easy to get discouraged if you have unrealistic expectations on your progress. You know what I mean?
hmm Expectation management is obviously really important, but I also want to. I agree with everything you said. I also want to play devil's advocate in a way too, because I think the title of this podcast is going to be "Earn It." So you have to know what you're getting into to a certain degree. You have to know that and this is a good habit to build overall. To know that everything, all the work you're putting in, everything you're doing is going to require you to put forth all the effort you have, and that it's not going to come easy. I want to also say on the other side too that looking at a lofty goal can also be very daunting sometimes, that it hinders people from going after it. So the unknown can also be kind of a good thing because you learn and adapt along the way too. Because like so I'm gonna hate myself for saying this on a podcast, but I have told you and a couple other people that I want to do the Daytona 100. You're going to be one of those people that's probably going to do it with me. I haven't done more than 20 miles. So, I don't really know what 100 is going to feel like, or if we do the 50, if you and I split it up and do 50 and 50, or 25, 25, so on and so forth. But I think it's kind of like just getting battle tested and seeing how you can respond to it is another really important part of going after a goal. Is you don't know all that's going to come, and that you build, knowing that you're going to build mental fortitude and strength along the way too is equally as important as going into it with a good expectation management on it, and knowing that hey, this is going to take a lot of work. So as equally as important as expectations up front, there's also not knowing how everything is going to go. Is It can be a really beneficial thing too, because you might not even go after that goal if you knew all that was required, because that can be daunting sometimes. Maybe not for you and I, but maybe for the average listener out there who wants to set out and do a marathon. The training for a marathon is not easy for anybody. Let's say it's a pretty big goal, and doing a marathon is great. For some people have done hundreds of marathons, so it's not really anything to them. But I think there is two parts of it. Yes, the expectations of knowing that this is going to require a lot of work, and that you're going to suck for a very long time at whatever you're doing. But also, for the person that might be too daunted by the big and lofty goal, not knowing everything that's required ahead of you and just kind of learning along the way and building that mental strength can also be a beneficial experience too. I think I've heard people talk about, if I would have known all that was going to go into this and all the work that was going to require and all the money I was going to put forth into it, I probably wouldn't have done it, but I did it, and I'm kind of happy it's over with now. But I think for our case, that's kind of a good thing to not know all that's required. I mean, day of, you have no idea what an Ironman is going to be like until you go out there and do it. And you're gonna be running your half marathon at the end of cycling and swimming, and you're gonna be like, oh my gosh, this is a lot of work that I didn't even know. But I just think that both sides are important, and I think maybe yours is arguably your point is more important. That expectation management is obviously something we have to have going into it for sure.
Yeah,
Does
I
that make?
definitely,
I don't know if I
yeah,
came across the right way.
no, that makes sense. And I think that they go together. I think you're right. I think that there should be both. There should definitely be goal setting. There should be expectation management, but I think that there's a lot of benefits and beauty in the unknown as
Yeah,
well.
yeah,
I definitely look forward to that. I look forward to that. It's just like with the marathon. We did 20 miles was the most we did in our build up. It's like once I hit 20 miles in the marathon, it was just kind of like, all right, here's unknown territory. Let's see what happens. And you kind of look forward to that. And
hmm
for us that are like kind of weird, I like I like the unknown of that. Let's see how this is going to feel. How am I going to be able to handle this? I know it's going to suck eventually. It already sucks right now. This is going to get worse. How am I going to react to that? I think that that's something that um, my dad and I were kind of talking about that or alluding to that today. It's going to be an experience, and I think that's an awesome thing. For the people that have done multiple Ironmans, they know what to expect. It's different for them. But the first time or two, like it's such an experience in anything for the first time that you do, and I look forward to that part of it a lot. Of course, the planning and preparation and everything is as much as going into it as much as I can, so that when I get to those moments, I'm as prepared as I possibly can be. I think that's the point in general is that you can't prepare 100% for this sort of thing. You just can't unless, like I said, you're super experienced and you're one competing in Kona or whatever it is for the world champions. Those guys obviously and girls are on next level, but for us and for the people that listen to this podcast, it's it's so different, and the experience is just the best part about it. And just and practicing and making progress as much as you can to prepare for the unknown that's definitely going to happen during it. So I think that there's both, and I think that you should have both for sure.
and I mean, just look at trying to like between you and me, John. I think about like back to when we were in college, or like even after college when we were going through school. We had all we did was lift weights. Like who would have thought that first it was like, all right, let's pick up running a little bit, and then let's try a marathon or a half marathon, and then now we're talking about doing half Ironman and 100-mile races, or running like a sub 135 half or a sub 3 marathon, and then next is going to be doing the full Ironman, and then but it started with not really kind of being in the unknown, the fear of the unknown. When you said you were going to do the full Pittsburgh marathon, you were like, I have no idea how this is going to go. I didn't really run much besides in rugby, so let's see how this goes. So the element of the unknown, plus building a strong training plan, it's a very rewarding thing. And if you can tap into being fearful and okay with the fear of the unknown, that kind of makes you a dangerous person, in a good way, because a lot of people just shy away from that, and they don't even want to step into that territory because it's just too scary for them. It's like for someone out there who's maybe jumping a new job, it's the same exact fear. It's like burning the ship. That's like the common phrase of like, you're going to jump ship if you want to go out and do your own thing and start your own business. Is there a transition period where you can do something else on the side and make a second income while you're still working your 9 to 5 job? Because that's not really jumping it, burning the ship. But there is the burning the ship where you don't do a secondary hustle on the side, and you're just leaving your job and starting your own company, and it forces you to kind of rely on your natural instincts and your previous habits, and adapt and learn along the way, and uh, and hope for the best, and work your tail off until you get it. And so that's partly, maybe not partly, maybe largely what you're going to be doing too, because you don't really know, and it's a big race for you to do. So
Yeah,
and
I I agree that fear fear is very very much part of everyday life. not just with this training. There's a lot of fear involved with this, which I'll explain in a second. But like you said, fear with taking that step at work, leaving a job for another job, not knowing what the outcome will be, no guarantee on what the income will be. Um, in relationships, like people that are in bad relationships and are scared to leave because they don't like want to have to start over again. There's a lot of there's a lot of fear that goes on in everyday life, and the fear with this sort of training, maybe it's obvious, maybe it's not, but it's not even just the actual race itself, it's like the training too. And for me, just like yesterday, I did a 2 hour and 45-minute bike ride and then an hour run afterwards. And before going into that, I I have not done 2 hours and 45 minutes on the bike. So there's unknown there, and that was kind of like, that was scary to me. How am I going to feel? Because what worries me is, am I going to be able to do this? Because this is just the training. And if I can't do the training, which this isn't even the full distance, how the heck am I going to do this in June? So it's the fear of, I guess, failure, or even like the fear of giving up, or getting to a point where it sucks so bad, and like, I don't know if I can do this, and then that seed, letting that seed get into your head, and planting that seed and then having that in there, like it was just almost like I just had to just ignore it and just, all right, let's just see what happens. Let's go out there and see what happens. We don't know. I don't know exactly what's going to happen. I have a plan for what I'm going to do nutrition wise on the bike and with fluids. Like, I got that hashed out. So there's no thought involved in that. I know exactly how I'm going to do it. I have a general idea of where I'm going to ride. Let's just see how this feels, and deal with it as it comes. But if you let that fear creep in and plant seeds into your brain, it's going to become debilitating and stop you from sometimes even starting. For some people, that's enough to not even think about or even trying something new. It just is like completely handcuffs people. And then there's also that during, like I'm talking about now, when you're taking that step into the next transition and you're going through some rocky patches and some rough patches, and you start to second guess yourself. Should I have done that? Should I have quit my job? Did I make the right decision in this relationship? Crap, what? Should I go back? And then some people do, and they give up, and they let those rough patches and that fear get into their head, and they go back a step, and that's the worst mistake you can do. I feel like the only way is forward. You cannot let that fear bring you down and stop you from continuing, because eventually that amount of suck and that amount of darkness is going to be overcome, and you're going to get through it. And what's on the other side of that is, not to be cliche, is something that like you've always wanted, and you don't know what it's going to feel like yet, but I'm telling you, it's so worth it. And when I got off that bike, I did my run, and I got back from doing the run. Yeah, I was dogged. I was gassed, but like, it felt good. Like, I can't even describe it. It's just like you just conquered that fear, and now you just stacked another brick, and you're like, all right, I know that I can do that. I did 45 miles. I could have done 10 more miles, 11 more miles on that bike. I know I could have. And then now you have that confidence, and that's huge going forward in the next part of training, or your next relationship, or your next position at work, whatever it is. And so, like, for me, it was like, that's such a big step yesterday, and then ran 6.5 miles afterwards. So I did the majority of the bike and then half of my run that I'm going to have to do. So the leg heavy stuff, like, I kind of showed myself that, yeah, it's not race pace, but I know that I could do it. And I know what it feels like now, and I know that my nutrition worked, and, I know the bike held up, shoes held up. Like, it just, my equipment felt good. My tri-suit felt good. It's just, you're ticking all those boxes that were unknown, and before you go into the actual race day, so that by the time that I get to the race day, I'm going to be much more comfortable with how that's all going to feel. There's still going to be a lot of unknown, like we talked about, but it's going to be a lot better than if I succumbed to my fear and just said, yeah, I'm going to do 20 miles on the bike, and I'll just run a couple miles, and I'll be in enough shape to finish this race, and we'll just see what happens and then just kind of and go through the motions, and yeah, it might be a complete sufferfest, but I'll get it done. It's just like that that doesn't that doesn't really add up to a successful outcome, unless your outcome is to just suffer and tick a box and say I did an half Ironman or whatever. Like some people just want to go through the motions and just to say they did it. But sorry, I kind of went off on a tangent there. But
No, I loved it. It's a compounding effect. This is why this is why fitness translates so well into everyday life. And you're exactly right about the you checked a box yesterday because you did something that was daunting. The same holds true for business and for life. And uh, kind of attacking the fearful goals that you set for yourself. And think of it like if you move to a new area. When I moved to Jacksonville, I had no idea what I was doing besides a job that I had lined up. And I just took a leap and I said, I'm going to make it work. I'm going to figure out how this is going to, I'm going to figure it out one way or another. I'm not here with anybody, but I'm burning the ship and I'm jumping and I'm just going to try and do my best. And a lot of it too has to come down to your mental fortitude, which is being built slowly and surely through this. Um, when you were talking about doing that training yesterday, when you did the ride and then you ran after, and that was I mean, I'm sure you were nervous before that because it's a lot. You did probably at least 3 hours worth of training yesterday between the 2.5 hour ride, and then you did 6. So you're probably looking at, or you did 6.5. So you're probably looking at least an hour there, right? Something like
yeah,
3 hours.
it was close to 4 hours total.
Oh, okay, 4 hours. So that was me 2 weekends ago, or actually the past month. I haven't been training for anything. I've just been going out and doing my long runs with the club, and whatever anyone's doing, I'm just game for. That's kind of the training I'm in right now. Like I have I love it right now because I can lift as much as I want. I can run as long, for whatever I want. I don't have to hit a certain amount of mileage each week. I have goals that I'm still setting that I'm trying to run each week, but those long runs, I'm just going out there to see how I feel. And if I want to cut it at 8 miles, I cut it there. If I want to do, 12, I'll cut it there, whatever. So I did the most I'd done leading up to like a month ago was probably it was 13. It was the half marathon here in Jax. My buddy was like, let's just try and do 15. I was like, all right, whatever. So we did 15, and then the next weekend he was like, let's do 17. I was like, all right, 2 more miles, like whatever. I'll go out there and dog it. So I did 17, and then the next weekend he texted me. He's like, the day before he said, let's do 20. And I just didn't answer. I was like, I'll be there in the morning because I knew that if I have this weird psychological component to my training that get if I tell myself I'm gonna do 20, then like I'm gonna kind of overthink it, and I'll be overthinking it the entire run. My heart rate will go up, and then I'll like get dead tired pretty quickly, and I get in my head about it. So I just went out there and I was like, I'm just gonna go out and see how I feel. So we were running 10 miles out. It was kind of like a point and back, down and back. And at 10, I was like, let's do 20. Let's just do it. And then I'm not training for anything, but I ran it at 8:30 pace. I did 20 miles. That's the most I'd ever done. And I think if I was training for Donna at the time and I ran 20, I'd be overthinking it and I'd be like, oh, I would love to do 20 miles at 8:30. That's awesome. And I'm not even training for anything. So I'm not even in the best shape I can be right now. And I went out there and did that. So we make these mental barriers because we think we know what we're capable of at the time. And then when you check off a box and you say, all right, I did 20, like I can definitely do 22 now. And then you go and do 22, and then you're like, I can do 26. And then what's the thing after 26? You can dog 26, so why don't you go for 30? And that's what you're doing right now with your training. You're doing a 2.5 hour ride and then running 6.5 after that. And then the next thing is going to be you doing a 3 hour ride and then running for an hour and a half and then the swim for an hour or whatever it is. So it's just checking the boxes, like you said, and it's getting comfortable with slowly taking on challenging tasks that you don't know if you're capable of, but going out there and doing it and giving yourself an ultimatum, like I'm going to get this done, whether I like it or not. And then once you realize it, the next ride after that, the next feed after that, you're like, oh my gosh, what was I thinking at 20? That was like, I can easily do 20 now. That was nothing, and I thought it was the most difficult thing at the time. So it's an adaptation of the mind a little bit to your goals, and that's with
100%. Yeah.
anything, right? Who knows where we're gonna be, Jonah, in 10 years in our career? I think as long as you keep pushing the barriers mentally and physically and spiritually, I mean the world is endless and it's at your fingertips. You can do whatever you want, and the mind succumbs to kind of your daily thoughts. So if you tell yourself and you limit yourself on a daily basis, you're never going to be getting those things that you want. It's always a mental push.
Yeah, exactly. And like you just said, we're so capable of doing more than we think we can. Like our mind limits us, I think, to protect us in a way. But man, as soon as you start pushing that boundary a little bit, or what you think is your limit, it opens up so much, like you're talking about. Then you realize what you're really capable of, or the extent of how far you can push this. And I think that's just an amazing thing that everybody needs to experience in one facet of their life or another. Like, I don't know how else to describe it. What if it's somebody who is about to have their first child, right? And they're young, they're our age or something. I'm sure that I mean, I feel this way, and I will feel this way, knowing the day that I know that I'm gonna have a child on the way, where I'm thinking that, man, like, how am I gonna take care of another person? Like, my schedule is full, like every day is full. How am I gonna then prioritize this other person? I have to raise another human being, and your brain almost kind of like, you get all this noise and it almost limits you in a way until it happens, and then you do it and you deal with it, and then you realize, okay, I can wake up at 5 instead of 6, and I have a whole other hour. I can do my workout then, and then the rest of the time is for work and family. And you kind of start seeing the bigger picture, and you push past the boundaries that the insecurities or the fears that you had. And that is so true in the world of fitness and endurance. You know, like, think about the first time that you considered bench pressing 225. I remember being in high school and thinking of 185 as like, whoa, like that's a huge step, or even just like 135, putting a plate on each side and bench pressing that. And then, working to that goal, and then realizing that there's so much potential as long as you keep making consistent daily progress, step by step by step, little by little. And something else that kind of goes on with that, along with that, is, like we say, get 1% better every day. Even if it's a 0.5% better, just get better. Do something to get better every day. And you're going to push that boundary to a point where you don't even know if there is one. And I'm not there yet. Like, I still feel my boundaries and my limitations, but I know that I can push it. And I know that, like you're saying, I've done 26.2. I could do 30 if I pushed it. It's a little unknown, but I feel like I know I can do that. I completely agree with you. The mind is capable of so much more than we're letting it, than what we realize. And another big topic, you kind of touched on this earlier, and I wrote it down because I wanted to come back to it, is whether it's a lofty fitness school, or it's a career change, or a big move to another state. You have to understand that and be okay with being misunderstood and maybe questioned and scolded, laughed at, whatever, looked down upon, you know, people looking at you weird, whatever. And you have to be comfortable with that, because if you are not comfortable with that, it's going to limit you, or just completely outright stop you from making that jump and doing a career change, moving to a different state, training for a marathon, for an Ironman. Like, I think that I'm at the point now where I don't care about being misunderstood. I could give two shits about what somebody else thinks about what I'm doing or what my goals are. Um, I don't care. Whenever I get off a bike ride and I immediately go into a run and I'm wearing my tri suit or my bibs for cycling, I look ridiculous. I know I do. Like, people look at me weird when I run past them. And it's like always the guys that are with their wife or girlfriend that are like not really in shape, that I can like see them like making a smirk or something. And I just laugh out loud a lot of times because it's just the people that don't have what it takes to do what you're doing, don't want to take that risk. And so then they project their insecurities onto you. It's like, Andrew, if somebody said to you, I don't know if you should move to Florida, that's kind of a big jump. Like, you're moving away from your family and friends and everything. You'll be by yourself. I don't know if you should do that. It's probably the same person that is a little bit older and wishes they would have taken a step like that when they were younger.
Yep.
And once you start thinking like that, then you don't let the naysayers get into your head and you use it as fuel instead. I think that's really important. Be comfortable with being misunderstood.
Yeah. The whole time when you were talking about that, Jonah, I was thinking of Jocko saying good. He's like, people are going to scoff at you. Good. People are going to look at you weird. Good. And I actually experienced that in my career pretty early on. There was there was someone that when I first moved down to Florida, and I was talking about the fact that I was gunning for I wanted to run a clinic pretty early in my career. And she was like, Andrew, I like you a lot. Like, you're a good PT. And I think you have a lot of the qualities that you'd that would suit you well to be a manager, but I don't think you're ready for it. And it was someone that was not above me. She was an equal counterpart to me. So I didn't at the time. It did kind of slip into my mind, and I was like a little bit doubtful in myself, and as other people should be. But I think now, once you prove what you're capable of doing, then it's not, people don't scoff. People start to turn their opinion around and say, oh, I believed in you the entire time. I knew you would do it. It's like, nah, no, you didn't. You didn't know that. That's okay though. I mean, that's why I'm doing it. And well, actually, it's not why I'm doing it, but I'm glad that I proved you wrong, honestly, because I'm doing it for myself. And that's what you said. You're doing it for yourself. And you don't owe it to anybody else besides yourself. And I think if you do feel like you owe it to other people, you're not going to make it very far, because your why is not the true why. If you are doing it for yourself or in a deeper reason, then that's what's going to make you withstand the people and the naysayers and the doubtful thoughts that come into your head and all of that. But if you're doing it for somebody else, and then you soon realize that, like, oh, I'm just getting tired, it's not really worth it, whatever, they can believe whatever they want. I think, I don't know, I just think that that's surrounding yourself with the right people. The circle, we talk about the small circle, and we built this podcast around the term brick by brick. That is the foundation of our podcast. That's actually what we were going to call the podcast before. And that's why our logo has bricks in it. It's because we're stacking bricks. And it's day by day, thought by thought, sometimes minute by minute, hour by hour, when the days seem like they're getting monotonous. That's what it comes down to, is just percent better, whatever percent that is. And the idea behind the podcast too is one of none. You are one of zero, and that's true in every regard. Whether it's you're the only person that's truly you that exists on this earth, and prove it to yourself. That's the whole idea behind it. You're not one of one. I mean, you're not one of one. You're one of none, and we're trying to portray that bettering yourself and and being the best that you can possibly be, there's no other competition besides yourself. And it's true self improvement, self growth, mental fortitude, and just building the habits that are going to help you. Specifically in Jonah's example with his race, all the stuff he's doing now is building a stronger mind and a stronger body. And that's the basis of this podcast, is to develop those true qualities that help you be the best version of yourself. Because that's, at the end of the day, it's you against yourself, nobody else. Yeah, the competition's there, but at the end of the day, I know Jonah is not gonna. He doesn't know anybody else competing besides some of our boys that are doing it with him. He's not. He doesn't look at the other guys that are competing against him. He's just knowing what his goal is, and he's trying to get out there and do it the best that he can. So, um, I think being the best version of yourself and quieting the noise, as I like to say, we say that a lot at work, is quiet the noise, quiet the noise. There's a lot of background noise and chatter from other people. People are going to say whatever they want, but at the end of the day, building a strong mind and being able to withstand people that doubt you and have things to say about you, it's all hearsay. And I think that's like my favorite thing too, is getting out there and dogging a run at like 5 a.m. And there's people out. I've said this before on a podcast, but you just imagine there's a guy like drinking his energy drink and smoking his cigarette on the road, and he turns his brights on and sees like two dudes at 5 a.m. running, 20 miles, and he's on his way to the gas station, and then he comes back the other way, and we're still out running an hour later or 2 hours later, and he gives his little smirk, but little does he know that he's just, not doing anything that's productive for himself. And they can always say what they want to say, but I know what I'm building. I know what I'm building for the people around me, and for my circle, and for my family, and for my life, my future life. That's what's important. I went on a tangent a little bit, but I love that. I love that you said that. You got to quiet the noise.
Yeah, definitely. And I do that all the time too. Like on my bike ride yesterday, it wasn't even like somebody was like smirking at me, or even they probably didn't even register my existence whatsoever. But in my mind, it was probably like the third time that I had passed this person riding on my bike, and I just looked at them and I'm like, yep, still me, you know, still me out here,
Yeah.
and like sucked energy off of that, even though they for sure didn't care or
This is
even notice my existence.
the most harmless person ever, and you're just talking trash on them. And that's what you got. Sometimes it's what you have to do, and there's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah. I picture myself like when I'm running on the trail and there's people around me and I'm like passing people, like I like picture like me almost like absorbing some like energy off of them. Like I just surpassed you. Like thanks, I don't know how else to explain it. Just
Mhm.
little stuff like that when you're doing endurance things to keep you going, the
Yeah.
mental games that you play. But that pretty much wraps it up for me. One last thing I kind of want to end on for me personally, and then Drew can finish up with anything else he has, is it's never too late. It's never too late to start getting better. And it doesn't have to be a lofty thing. It just step by step, brick by brick, every day do something that to improve in whatever that is, in your relationship, in your faith, in your fitness, in your health. You know, just take it one step at a time. Don't be afraid by the big picture and what this big lofty goal that you might have for the future. Just know that that's there, but put it aside. Take this, take this one day at a time. If it's a really hefty goal, take it a minute at a time. Take it a mile at a time, or an hour, whatever. But just, it's never too late to start and be a better person for yourself or for your family or whatever. Just start. But like I said, that's all I got. And hopefully we were able to kind of, I don't know the right word, inspire. Seems kind of cheesy, but give you a little bit of insight, maybe something that's relatable for you guys, and hope that you got something out of that and kind of taking a look into our mindset on things.
Yep.
True.
One thing I wanted to talk about, Jonah and I have been looking at some companies to order some hats off of. we've been playing around with some designs. We are going to probably put together, we're probably going to buy two separate hats with kind of different design locations on it. We want to test the quality. We want to do a bigger order, but we're going to order some samples first. So if you are listening and you're interested, we're probably going to be doing some like dry fit type of Nike hats. I think we're probably going to end up going with some Nike. Um, we are going to probably post on our social medias some examples of what we are thinking of. If that's interesting to you and you want to potentially buy one, um, you can reach out to either Jonah and I. We're going to end up trying to get a rough estimate on how many people would want to get some, but we want to do some type of merch where we can do stickers, we can do hats, maybe some dry fit t-shirts so that y'all can run in them or work out in them. I think that'd be super cool. So that's on the radar. We are looking into some different designs. So if that's interesting to you, hit us up. Let us know if you're down for that. Yeah.
And if it's like a big enough amount of people that want some kind of hat or gear, it might not be exactly Nike, but it'll still be the same quality and a really nice like dry fit material running hat. Because if it's a bigger order, then we can do it through a specific company that like it's the same company that Nick Bear and a lot of people use. So the quality is really good. If it's just a handful, then we'll probably just do the Nike, just like you were talking about.
Yeah.
But I just
Yeah,
wanted
these
to,
are going to be high quality hats. They're still going to be really good. They're going to be able to endure your whatever you're doing, lifting, running, cycling, whatever you're doing. So they are not going to be cheapo hats. You're not going to be wasting your money on these. So especially if you know Nike's quality, it's going to be comparable to Nike. So I'm going to end it with that. JC, I think you kind of wrapped it up. Thanks y'all for listening. We appreciate it. We love talking about this stuff. As you know, we go on tangents quite a bit, but that's the stuff that this is just anecdotal stuff that we experience on a day-to-day basis. And we're grateful that y'all listen to us. And we hope we inspired or lit a fire a little bit underneath your butt and be one of none. So that's about it. Thank y'all for listening, and we will see you on the next podcast. Thank y'all.
peace.
I got that dog.